Welcome to Music Ed Tech Talk, a podcast about music, education, and technology. I'm your host, Robbie Burns. Craig, hey.
I'm back.
You're back. When were you last on?
Was it? I feel like it was at Christmas. It was like a gift guide episode. So probably more like November, but like it was.
Yeah, that's long.
Yeah, it's been a while.
That's wild. Okay, that was fun.
Yeah, it was. That was a good show.
Wow.
It cost me some money, so.
It always does. Yeah. It always does. Didn't you spend some money on the air?
Yes, I did. I don't even remember on what. Oh, I know what it was. It was that nifty little, it was a battery pack that also has multiple ports and can be your like charger in a hotel room, but then stores power as well. And it came in very handy on a trip I took the next month.
So glad to hear that.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, we go back, we met on the internet and used to have a podcast together that is no more, The Class Nerd, but we, I believe, still have all the episodes up for anyone who wants to go listen to that.
Yes, I tell people that I used to have a podcast and then don't tell them how to find it myself. But I think it's good content. I think we did a good job, but also we're very nerdy. And I don't know, like, I'm good revealing it to your audience and our Class Nerd audience. Maybe not like new real life friends.
For those who have not heard our other show, I mean, we covered a lot of classroom productivity ideas that really centered around our own use of technology, which has always involved being really steeped in what Apple software and devices can do, and also the many great third-party independently developed apps that you can find on iOS and the Mac. And I think it's fun always to talk to you when something like this month happens, where we have had new operating system updates for all Apple platforms, in addition to new phones and new watches. I just thought I would have you on, and we would just talk about all of the new stuff that people's Apple products can do for them this year.
I love it. I'm very excited.
Now, I get excited about software, but I know that for someone who maybe like hangs on to their phone for like 3 or 4 years, they're probably pretty excited about a new shiny brick. Mm-hmm. And so we should probably take a second and just identify and call attention to the fact that the iPhone 15 is now out. I have one. It is actually acting as my webcam right now for this call.
Oh, okay. So which one did you get?
So I got an iPhone 15 Pro Max.
Back in the Max Club. Let's go.
I'm back in the Max Club. So as someone who has used, my past two phones have been the smaller size because I was getting so tired of the weight of the Pro Max phone. I've got to say, this new phone, the Pro models are made of titanium, and the amount lighter that they have been able to make it, mixed with the fact that the edges are a little bit smoother in shape, makes the phone feel so much better to hold, so much so that going from the smaller phone to the bigger phone, it actually feels lighter.
That's incredible.
I hate to say it, but I think I missed having the big phone.
And just for audience context, I currently have a 14 Pro Max and have been part of the Max Club for a while. But I do not and have not experienced. I've held a 15 Pro before. Somebody at church had one on Sunday, and I got to try it out. But, going from 14 Pro Max to 15 regular size Pro, it's hard to actually understand how much lighter because it was completely different size.
My quick and dirty review, if I may, is aside from how much better the phone feels to hold, so I went back to Max because every several years Apple will put a better camera in the largest size Pro phone, and this is one of those years. There's a big jump, and there's like this 5 times optical zoom thing that I can do. Now, I wish I could tell you that I've done more shooting with this thing, but I can't like give you an exhaustive review of the camera, but I'm like pretty pleased with it so far. I'm a sucker for a new piece of hardware if it introduces a new piece of software, and there is an action button on the side of this phone, and they've replaced the mute toggle switch with a button, and you can customize the button. You know this, but people listening might not. So I feel like we've got to have action button talk for at least a minute here.
Perfect. I'll talk about it on my Apple Watch as well, because I have that, but I do not have it on phone. I'm curious.
Because you got one of the new Apple Watches, right?
Yes, we'll get to that momentarily.
Okay, so this is perfect. So I'm still on the not Ultra. I'm on last year's non-Ultra model, and I'm having fear of missing out for the Ultra series since I've been reading all the reviews of it this past year. So, okay, so action button can function as the mute toggle. You press it instead of toggling it back and forth, or you can customize it. And Apple presents a very nice, pretty user interface for customizing this button. It can open the camera really quickly, turn on the flashlight, record a quick voice memo, all in one touch of a button. But you can also have it run a shortcut. Now, listeners of the Music Ed Tech Talk program will know that I love a good shortcut. So I have been working on my action button shortcut. I knew that I couldn't decide what I wanted this thing to do, so I have created a shortcut that will change its behavior based on which focus mode my phone is in. And it is always in a focus mode. So what it does is it's just the first step of the shortcut figures out what focus mode it's in. And then it's just a series of if-then statements. If it's in my personal focus, the action button does this. If not, look to see if it's in this next focus mode. If so, does this. So like when I'm in personal focus, which is most of the time, and I hold this button on the side of my phone, it'll pop up a little area in the keyboard for me to start typing. And then when I hit the done button, that goes into a brand new note in the Drafts app. At work, I'm always calling up the schedule for the day just to make sure I'm like letting my classes on time. And that is a school-wide document in a Google Doc. So at work, if I'm in work focus mode, it opens that doc in Google Docs when I hold the action button. In sleep mode, it's a flashlight. And the list goes on. I added a cool thing. So I read this in a blog post that was circulating over the weekend. There is an app called Actions. And there's a bunch of apps that are kind of just like, they exist for the sole purpose of extending the things that the Shortcuts app can do. So they just give you extra actions. And Actions is the name of an app that provides actions for the Shortcuts app, one of which is the ability to tell what orientation the phone is in. So I have that now as a step where if the phone is in my pocket and faced upside down, which is the way that I put my phone in my pocket, then it will behave as a mute switch by default. Because oftentimes if like, I get a phone call and I don't know I'm not on silent, I can just feel for the action button within my pants pocket and then put it on mute real quick.
I really like the flexibility of having that button change with context, and the way you're leveraging that with shortcuts is really cool. I have upgraded from an Apple Watch Series 7 to the Ultra 2. When the original Ultra came out, because let's be honest, there's not a lot of update between the original Ultra, which came out last year, and the Ultra 2. I was very jealous of all of the Ultras out there, but my watch was only a year old, and I really didn't want to upgrade. I try and upgrade my phone and watch on alternating years. And so it was a phone year last year and not a watch year. So now it's a watch year. And I mean, as we're recording this, I've had this watch less than a week, and we got them on Friday. I believe it's Wednesday right now. So I don't want to make like too bold a statement when it's been less than a week, but this might be one of my favorite pieces of Apple hardware I've ever had. One, battery life. Because look, I'm not, listeners may be able to tell by most of this conversation that this is my passion and not extreme underwater diving or mountain climbing. I'm not using the Ultra for its intended purposes. But what I love about it is the battery life. My 2-year-old Series 7, I wear it for sleep tracking, so I would charge it before bed. I would wake up and it would be at 80% already. So I would need to top it off. And then even topping it off in the morning when I first woke up, if I worked out during the day, which is a fair amount of days, I would be pushing the edge of the battery by the end of the day. Even at only 2 years old, like I was having to charge it that much. It was awful. And I don't know if that's because Apple introduced the Series 7 was the first one with fast charging and that wears the battery down. I don't know. But this, it arrived at about 75%. So that night I charged it for the first time that Friday night. When I charged it again 46 hours later, it still had 30% battery left.
Whoa.
It is insane. So even if it degrades over the next few years, I should still be, even if it degrades by 50%, I should still easily make it through 24 hours on a charge. And so that in and of itself sold. The other thing that I love about this watch that I did not expect to love, this is the brightest display that Apple has ever made on any device. And on a watch, that matters. And I didn't expect it to. But I have this dumb tradition that when I get a new Apple Watch, I go outside somewhere and I take a picture of my old one on my arm to kind of document this is the last day with this watch that I've worn every day for the last couple years. And then I switch and put the new one on. And like, it blew my mind, the difference in how well I could see the watch outside. And you can even tell in the picture that I just took just a crappy, quick iPhone picture. So, and I notice it when I'm outside, I glance out at my watch and I can see every complication, everything so clearly. It makes such a difference. And I know even if you're like, hey, the Ultra is too big for me. I know the Series 9, it's not quite as bright as the Ultra, but they greatly increase the brightness on there. It really matters. And I don't feel like people are talking about how much that improves the watch experience, but it really, really has for me. So that is my like general review of the Ultra. The only thing I'll add is because it's the watch and not the phone, I do use the action button, but it opens up the workout app and I choose which workout I'm doing. But that way I don't have to have a workout complication somewhere. I don't have to open the app. But one of the main things I do on my watch is start workouts. And so that to me was a quick like win. And that's been great too. So that is my Apple Watch Ultra 2 review.
That's awesome. I actually have a document. This is how insane I am. I know I am at least a year out from buying an Apple Watch Ultra, but I already have a running document with ideas for what I would do with the action button on an Apple Watch Ultra if I had one. I feel like stuff I do on my watch regularly, like logging water, would be pretty sweet, like in increments of like 8 ounces. I wish I'd used that Apple workout app, but ever since we started using Peloton on-demand classes, they have this achievement, which is like yearly minutes of working out, and everything I can track in that app counts towards that annual minute count. So I'm going for the achievement. So even if I'm just like walking outside, now here's my main problem with the Peloton people. They got to make that watch run standalone. It doesn't. So I got to have my phone on me when I go like run or walk. They can figure that out. They got to do it. But
and that is another thing about the battery life that I love, the standalone functionality. I'm trying to be away from my phone more, but I also my mom's getting older. I have a grandmother as well that, and so I need to be reachable and even by, my immediate family, my wife and kids, but I kind of like leaving my phone places. I've had a cellular Apple Watch since they existed, but the battery life was always so bad that I didn't ever feel like I could really leave it because cellular uses so much. And now it's like, okay, well, if even using multiple hours of cellular, that cuts my battery life in half. Again, I still make it through a day just fine. So more implications and why I love this watch.
I'm excited for it. And I know probably in the not too distant future, we're going to probably start rock climbing again. And I just know that like, I never like broke any of my Apple Watches climbing on the rock wall, but I feel like it'd be nice to not have to, think about it at all, just knowing that my arm could smack into a hold or something and not shatter into a million pieces. All right. Well, you got me reasonably stoked for my future. I'm excited for you and your watch.
I know it's not good podcasting for me because we are, for reasons that we'll disclose later, actually looking at each other. Normally when we podcast together, we don't. But I will show you my Apple Watch Ultra on Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty, even through the FaceTime call, it is pretty bright.
And that wasn't even like with it all the way lit up. That was in the always on mode.
Yeah, wow. Whew. Well, let's move on to the main topic, which is to say that like if you didn't get any new Apple hardware, guess what? Apple released a new operating system on every platform, and we're going to go through some of the highlight features that we think are useful and interesting. We'll try to apply them to our professional work, but some of these are just like nice to have life improvements that'll impact you everywhere. So I figure, I kind of want to group iOS 17 and iPadOS 17 just as one giant thing. Is that cool?
Yes, absolutely.
So for me, there's like sort of a subcategory of kind of like communication contact features that have come out. And one of the ones that I think is really nice, and these are the things that like non-nerd people like. So if you're listening to us and you're like, these guys are nerds, guess what? You're going to like this next feature. You're going to like it a lot. It's called contact posters. Now, when someone calls you and your whole phone is like overtaken by whatever their picture is, maybe you don't even have a picture, it's just their initials, so annoying. Or maybe you do have a picture, but it's some like really old like Facebook photo that's like all pixelated and gross. Well, now you can customize your own contact poster inside of the app that people will see when you call their phone, and it can be really beautiful. You customize it in the same way that you customize a lock screen for the past year, where you kind of like can take a nice photo of yourself. If it's a portrait mode photo, then Apple will offer you all these like cool filters that'll kind of like do cool things with the background or like change the color tone of it. You can like choose the font that your name appears in. It's just like a really nice way to customize how you are seen when you call and text other people, and it's really kind of nice. I'm actually like it makes me kind of want to get some new professional photography done, because I'm not really happy with the photo of myself I've settled on, though it is the most recent professionally shot photo that looks like what I look like now. I think this feature is really cool. I showed it to a couple of friends of mine who early adopted, and all of them were like pretty stoked about it.
Now remind me, because I've set mine up, but most of the people in my life, including my spouse, who's really about the only, and my parents are about the only people I talk to on the phone. So if I create my own contact poster, if I call somebody, does it automatically show up for them as well? Or is there someone do I have to send that to them, or how does that work?
There are some things you can tweak on both ends of the conversation. So people where we have like mutually agreed to share and accept each other's contact photos. Like I noticed my wife and then my friend both like changed their like profile photo, like not the poster itself, but like the photo that appears next to their name in the Messages app. And they're like people who, you know, I know like I'm in their contacts and they're in my contacts. And you can do some setup, like you can tell the poster to like be for contacts only or not. I think that because obviously like someone cannot like put some, you know, like work inappropriate photo in their contact and then call you and then just have it like be on your phone screen. So I think there's like some options you can tweak where like someone cannot just force something you don't want to see to be seen on your phone. And you can actually, it goes the other way too. So like if I see someone in my contacts, I can make a contact poster for someone who's in my contacts. So if I don't like whatever your thing is, I can say, well, I just want Craig to look this way when he calls me. And I can like take some nice portrait mode photo of you if I want. So it's not unlike what you could do with the little like circular headshots of people in the Messages app, which already I like my Messages app to look like an Apple product photo. So I will like go to great lengths to find photos of people on the internet and put them in the circle. And it's funny because if somebody ever catches a glance at my phone, they'll be like, why do you have that photo of me? And then I have to explain to them like, I went quite like deep in your Facebook history just to find this one photo.
So have you updated your picture of me? Because I just use my Memoji for messaging.
I haven't. I would like to at some point do that, or maybe you'll be making a contact poster.
I do have a contact poster made, so I just haven't called you, I guess, because we mostly text.
Well, how am I set up? Are you set up to share it with me? Because one of the things that happens too, and this is actually not a new iOS feature, but you can share your name with someone else so that like if you're texting a stranger, it will tell them who you are, even if you're not in their contacts. And that's the thing where in the Messages app, you'll see like a little banner that says like, would you like to accept this person's contact photo and name? And that actually is the same way that I have noticed some of the contact posters showing up is like, it'll offer me, but I don't actually see it for you, which is weird. Also, I think this feature is slightly buggy. Like when I was tweaking and playing around with it with some friends of mine, it seemed like it was not like there was a little bit of like restarting of the phones and like fussing with the settings that was taking place before the posters would show up.
Fair enough. And I will not make your audience sit through like tech support with Robbie while I hold my phone up to the screen and be like, look, here's my poster and it's flipping to the Memoji. So we'll avoid that. But good to know it's buggy. I'm excited to like have more people set this up though.
This is good though. I mean, like think about it like this for all you professionals out there. Like I feel this way about having a website too. Like you can actually choose how you are digitally seen by the world. And this is one nice little thing where when you meet someone at some professional conference or at a job interview or someplace, you have the choice to curate a little bit what your presence is like when they are communicating with you digitally. And this is just one small thing that's fun to set up. It takes a few minutes that will make you stand out, and you can put a little bit of personality and originality into it. So there you have it.
Now, let's say that you're meeting somebody new and you are trying to exchange those contact information. Does Apple have anything in iOS 17 that can help with that?
They sure do. Yes, there are new AirDrop features. The most unique of which is that you can now take two iPhones and hold the tops of them right up next to each other to exchange contacts with each other. The contact poster that you've customized will, of course, be the thing that you share. And it's not just this. It's also the entire share sheet has been sort of integrated with AirDrop. So if you're in that share menu and then you are about to share a file or a photo or something, and then instead of tapping the AirDrop button or tapping the iMessage button, you can actually just bump phones with another person and it'll just kind of beam it to them, which is really nice. And the animation and the haptic feedback you get in your hand from the phone is a pure delight when you do it.
So I experimented with this literally the first week the public beta was out. I was on a work trip with a coworker and we had both put the beta on our phones. And at that point, it wasn't as refined. We got it to work and it was oh, this is going to be a game changer once everybody's updated. But then I've not been in AirDrop proximity of any updaters. So I'm very excited about this. And what's going to be fun, watchOS 10.1, the beta for that dropped today. And you'll be able to do that with the watch as well. We didn't say, but the name of the functionality where you're sharing your contact, not just improvements to AirDrop overall, but the sharing your contact is called Name Drop, which is very clever. Apple's hit or miss with the naming, like Pro Max, for instance, but Name Drop, that's real good.
It is. I'm pleased.
Anyway, so you'll be able to do the Name Drop functionality from your watch as well in the next. Generally, those betas go 6 weeks, 2 months, something like that. So, before the holidays, that Name Drop functionality, you can just do it straight from your watch.
Yeah. Now, one of the most frustrating things I think about being a teacher is that I feel like I never have any personal time when I'm at work. And it's in particular hard to manage medical appointments, deliveries, phone calls about car insurance, you name it, stuff that sometimes just needs to be done between the hours of say 7 and 4 p.m. A lot of times I don't get calls even if I could answer a phone call, I don't receive the call reliably, or the call comes through and it's a number I don't recognize, so I usually let those go to voicemail. Well, there is a new feature that I think is going to really help me to better manage and prioritize important unknown phone callers when I'm at work and when I'm at home. And this is called Live Voicemail. And what it basically does is when somebody starts leaving me a voicemail, it will start to show the transcription of their voicemail on the screen of my phone. And then I can choose to answer based on what I see. And I tried it a bunch of times on the beta. It's improved quite a bit since July. I think it's in a pretty good place. I can't say it's 100% fail-proof so far. I think they need to improve it a little bit, but it certainly is a thing that I like and think will improve my life a bit.
I'm excited, but I'm like you. I do not get many phone calls. And then when I do, they often don't leave a voicemail. So, I live my life on Zoom and I'm constantly in meetings where I cannot answer my phone, but I'm hopeful that if, something comes in that I'll actually need to deal with, that it'll just show up and it'll work well. So I'm excited to see it, but I'm in the same boat as you.
Speaking of communication, there's a handful of FaceTime phone features. One little one that I really like is that you can now finally leave someone a video voicemail if they are not available for your FaceTime call. And I've already done that several times. It's a treat.
I'm excited about this. I have not done it, but I do have experience with the other FaceTime functionality. And it's kind of it's a funny story, so I will make it quick for your audience sake. But if you'll indulge me, It's one of the funniest things that has ever happened to me. So one of the new things that has been added to FaceTime is gestures and reactions. So right now, Robbie and I are FaceTiming, and if I give him a thumbs up, it should, yep, there it goes. It's doing a little pop-up with a thumbs up beside my head. And now, there it is from Robbie. I can make little, like, heart signs. I can make a heart with my hands, and it will do that. Now, I'm a big proponent of therapy, and I have moved away from Nashville. I lived in Nashville for 15 years, and now 3 years have lived in another city, but I still see my therapist from Nashville over FaceTime. And I have been on the iOS. I do my therapy over my laptop, but I've been on the Sonoma beta, and these FaceTime functionalities are on the new macOS as well. So I do my therapy on my MacBook Air, and I still haven't figured out what the gesture is for it. But I'm sitting in therapy. I'm pouring my heart out. It's a very serious moment in therapy, and somehow I trigger the gesture for balloons to start flying. Multiple times, and I cannot figure out what it is that's causing it. And I'm very fortunate that my therapist knows me well, because I've been seeing her for 12 years or something like that. But like, it was one of the funniest things, but it so interrupted my therapy session. And I will never get it. And I still don't know what the symbol is. I think, is it this? Okay, that's confetti.
Signs. Oh, that's confetti. Okay. Hold on. Is it this?
Oh, there's balloons. Okay, it's one peace sign. And I think what I do, it's if you hold up a peace sign, I think I like sit and use my fingers. Like I know this is, again, riveting podcasting, but I somehow hold, yep, there's Robbie with balloons. I somehow hold my hands in kind of a peace sign against my head, and I rest my head on it, and it causes the balloons. So this is your warning. This is very fun. Like, I'm enjoying confetti Robbie all over the place right now. But know that if you update your devices to these updates and you're FaceTiming with people, you will end up, there are ways that you can trigger things by accident. So good luck to you.
I'm making this really hard for you, aren't I? I'm trying them all out while you're talking, which is probably not helpful. I know that if sticking two fists up in the air makes fireworks happen, but I'm trying to, and failing to get it to work.
I can't.
Right now.
Yeah, that's not happening for me.
It happened to me one time. Is there a thumbs down? I think there's thumbs down, right? Is one of them.
Oh, yep there you go.
Yeah, heart. I didn't know balloons are confetti, so thank you for teaching me that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that fireworks is a fist, or I don't know. I gotta look on their documentation and figure it out. But yes, it's good to treat it also as a warning as much as it is a celebration, because those are going to go off for someone somewhere.
100%.
All right. I'll come to another fun one here. And this is a messages feature. People are going to go nuts over this. You can now lift images, the subject of images that are shot in portrait mode. Actually, I don't even think they have to be in portrait mode. Apple does all this like AI stuff to basically figure out like, okay, this is a picture of like you and some friends. You and the friends are the subject of the photo. Or this is a picture of your cat. The cat is the subject. Or this is a picture of a car. The car is the subject. And if you long press on the subject of a photo while looking at that photo, you can actually drag it out of that photo and then drag it into the body of a text message or an email. I think actually also if that's too much like thumb gymnastics for you, you can just long press the subject and then a little copy option will appear right above it. And you can just copy it to your clipboard and then paste it elsewhere. And then yes, what you're doing right now. So you can actually now send these subjects to the Messages app as stickers, which if you've never used iMessage stickers, it's a treat. They're little like, custom animations. You can buy them on the App Store and you just kind of like drag and drop them on top of Messages. But now you can turn all the subjects of your photos into stickers, but live photos too. So if you have a picture,
man, it's so good.
It's great. So I have all these pictures of like, I mean, it's just so great to like catch someone in action and then like lift that out into a sticker and just like stick it in a message. It just brings so much joy to like, I mean, my wife and I are just like sticking little moving images of our son everywhere in the message.
Yeah, I just sent one to Robbie of my oldest daughter. I went back and found this random picture where I said smile. And right as I said smile and went to take the picture, she moved her face into a really goofy face, and the live photo is her going from like a fake smile into the goofiness. And my wife and I have used that, or I keep sending it to her. She keeps being annoyed that her messages app is always moving with the same stickers, but I love it. I've turned once pictures of each of my kids into stickers to use as reactions to things my wife says, and it's fantastic.
This is the definition of a cute live photo sticker, by the way.
Thank you. That's I did
Perfect.
I did choose that one intentionally. It's one of the best ones I've got.
It's only just now dawning on me that these are probably, are these syncing to the Mac? I only just put the new Mac operating system on my computer yesterday, so I don't know if all of the ones I made on my phone are syncing. It appears that they are not. But yeah, what a treat. It's very cool. Very cool. Okay, so there's a feature called check-in where, like, if you're, and this is like a real thing. Like, sometimes have friends or family, like maybe like Mary is driving somewhere at night, she's tired, and she's like, hey, can you just like make sure I get where I'm going? Like, it's a very real thing that, like, sometimes you just want someone to know, like, you just want to check in with someone and them to know you got home safe. And Apple now builds this in to the Messages app. You can actually, like, temporarily give someone your location access, and it will just kind of update them inside of the Messages app, like where you are and, like, where your phone location is and when you safely got home.
Yeah, and I think it also can tie into the Maps app, so you can set like, hey, I'm going to this destination. So even if it's not home, you're going, you're meeting a friend, you've got a friend in town and they're staying at a hotel and they don't know the town very well or something, but you meet them for dinner and then they're going back to their hotel or something. They can share, they can pull up the map, say, get directions to the hotel, and then give you the check-in to make sure that that they made it to the hotel safely. So the tie-in with Maps, I think, is really powerful.
Yeah, and parents with like kids who drive, like this is very much a thing. Like, what would my mom have done? I mean, my mom already I give my mom Find My access. That I don't know if that's certainly a boundary that not everyone wants to cross. But it's like, my mom's retired. I gotta give her something to do, so she sits around and watches me on the map, which is most of the time probably pretty boring because there are two places that I spend most of my time. And but I just think like this would have been a nice thing. It would have been far preferable to what actually happened the first time I ever drove a car by myself, which is I had only one rule, and the rule was, you will call me when you get where you're going. This was set up for like the months prior to me getting my license, and being 16-year-old me, I was so excited to get to where I was going and see all my friends that what did I not do? Somehow I forgot to call my mom. And my mom's favorite, she loves to tell this story, so I love to just tell it first so that she loses the joy of telling.
So next time I talk to your mom, I'll let her know that I've heard the story already.
Well, what she does is, like, it's very, very characteristic of how she dealt with discipline when I was growing up, is she got, because like we only had one car in the family and it was mine that night. So she went to her neighbor's house, got a ride to where I was, and she walked in the door and she said, hey, we're going to go home and we're going to try that again. And so I had to be embarrassed in front of my friends, drive all the way home, but then I got to go all the way back and try again. And I've called my mom, every time I've said I would ever since then. But what if there was the check-in feature?
Right.
I just would have tapped a button and she would have known.
We're going to lose the ability to embarrass our kids when they're old enough to drive. I
know. What a shame. Hey, I am a very, very serious health tracker in the Apple Health app. Any app or hardware device that will track an aspect of health that can be tracked in the Apple Health app, I will buy that device, use that app, or track it. And Apple has been adding more and more mental health features, and I think there's one that's pretty cool in particular. It's this like daily check-in, and usually this is the kind of thing that usually bothers me, like on my watch, where it's like, take a second to breathe, and I think, don't tell me what to do, you're a watch. But there's this new one that's like, check in about your day, and it seems kind of like touchy-feely, but it just has this really, really simple like little thing. You like kind of slide the crown of the watch to just kind of like indicate like how pleasant, or I forget what the opposing word is, but like how's your day going? It's like just a simple slider. It has a nice, pretty animation that sort of represents, pleasantness on one side and trouble on the other. But what I really like about this is if you take it seriously and use it with a fair amount of regularity, in the Apple Health app, you can actually filter other data that you may be tracking in the Health app and see connections between your mood and other things going on. So you can like do a filter where you see, here's how you track your mood for every day of the past month, and here's how much sleep you got in a graph, like overlaid on top of each other. Or you can see like how many minutes of exercise did you get every day, or how much water did you drink every day. And I think this is kind of like a really cool thing, because one thing with all this data I'm tracking, one thing that I would love for Apple or some kind of third-party app developer to do is like make actual insight out of those. Like a lot of the conclusions I'm drawing myself, it would be nice if the Apple Health app could like prompt me and say like, hey, did you know you've been feeling kind of down the past couple days, but you've like not moved your body at all? Maybe there's something there.
Yeah, I like this. I'm not using it. I just pulled mine up, and I have apparently not logged a mood in about 10 days. So not doing great with that. But I did it pretty consistently for a while. It's interesting. Just the only other call out that I will say that is helpful, since we are grouping iPad OS in here, is the Health app is on the iPad now.
Yeah.
And so you can quickly pull and look up and make those associations and those things. It'll sync, I believe, end-to-end encrypted, like really securely with your iCloud account. So all that data, if it's collected by your watch or whatever. I forgot about the minutes of daylight, how much you were outside and were in the sun. That's detectable now. I just saw that for the first time. So yeah, and then that'll sync to your iPad if you want to look at it and look at some of those charts and associations on a bigger screen, you can do that.
Yeah, I do like that. It's not something I've used a lot, but I'm always an advocate of give me the data everywhere. Like I always want the thing in front of me to be a window into the same information that I've collected elsewhere in my computing life.
Well, and especially as tied in with Apple's ecosystem, or as tied together as Apple's ecosystem is. It was a weird omission to not have that when everything else syncs so well.
Yeah. Apple is in a later update this year going to bring a journal app to iOS and the Mac. And I think this is interesting. I use the fairly popular Day One journaling app on all of my Apple devices. And I've been doing more intentional journaling lately. I have a paper journal, actually, that's very specific to certain things. We can talk about that some other time. I'd love to. But then I have like Day One is for more like just kind of like stream of conscious, like, that's the more touchy-feely one, is the Day One. Because I typically don't write in a way that I necessarily am planning to go back and read it and think it's eloquently put, But it's just a nice place to capture all that stuff. And it's got a little extra protection. Like requires Face ID to show me my journals and stuff. So, and I track that in a health tracking app where I track like habits I'm trying to build. That's like a daily thing I'm going for. So it'll be interesting to see if Apple's take on a journal app can tie in some of these health integrations we're talking about. Maybe like your maps locations, like where you were in the day, or some key photos. Like, Day One is able to do some of that, but Apple might be able to go a little deeper with it. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm excited to give it a try. I have, as I've talked about on this show several times, moved to a more pen and paper lifestyle, although it might be starting to shift back, and we can talk about that more maybe later as well. But anyway, I'm not doing as much journaling in Day One, but I think if the phone is gathering stuff for me automatically, and stuff that I wouldn't write down in a paper journal, but it would be really nice to have, I think that's a win. So I'm definitely excited to try this.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I'll just shout it out here just to, because I know that we're both big fans of the Cortex podcast and the products that they make. Their theme system journal is the paper journal that I use. And they have this whole, we'll link it in the show notes, but they have this whole system for like creating a yearly theme and sort of having reflection on that theme every day. And then some like checkable little circles that you can like circle in for like habits or whatever. Or you can actually kind of use the circles really for anything you want. But for me, that paper journal is like, the way I'm dealing with it is like it's exclusively for reflection on the system that I'm trying to build for myself, for my mind and my body this year. And I track specifically that in it. And I don't know.
I love it.
That's making me do it more, that it has a purpose and a context. And then it's nice because then if I have like fast stream of conscious touchy-feely stuff I have to get out and my pen can't move fast enough, then I just, it's just really there to be like, did you exercise for at least 10 minutes today? Did you meditate today? And then like, if not, do you feel terrible? Probably, because you're supposed to be doing those things. Really briefly comment, and then that's my system for that. But that journal is excellent, as are all Cortex products. So there are some improvements to PDF and Notes, and every time Apple makes PDFs and or Notes better, I want to like jump into Apple Notes and try them out. But then I always go through this thing, which I'm going to save till later in our outline today, which is this constant question of like, well, maybe if we do it fast, can we just sneak this topic in here?
Sure, let's go.
I always am tempted when Apple does something with the Reminders app or with the Notes app where they make it better. I'm always like, oh man, I gotta just go back to Apple Notes. And it never lasts because I think I've reached a new point in my digital life, which I can explain in a second. But Apple is like now making PDFs that you drag into the Apple Notes app have like really rich annotation features. You can like swipe through and like paginate them without actually opening them in preview. You can collaborate on a note that has PDFs in it with another user and like annotate the PDF together. It's just really nice for a lot of the kind of research-based things. And it looks a million times better than my current note app of choice. And it even now has backlinking, which has like been the entire reason that I've moved my notes over to apps like Craft and Obsidian over the past 2 years, which has received plenty of attention on this show. But that main kind of feature of where you can like link to a note inside of another note is now inside. That's an Apple Note thing now. So I think that's a welcome addition, even though I probably am not going to move to Apple Notes, even though I kind of want to move to Apple Notes.
Yeah, I mean, I will just briefly kind of say where I'm at with some of these things, and then maybe we can dive deeper later. But I have started a new position at my company this month. Like I've done 2 full weeks. I'm finishing up my 3rd full week of this job. And as such, I am having to put together new systems and ways that I organize things that are very different from before. And I have even on this show well documented that I'm a fountain pen guy. I love pen and paper. I have multiple paper planners that I use for different things. I can't, on some of these meetings that I'm working with engineers who are talking very quickly, and I cannot write fast enough. I have to do, and I'm a lot of times, because I'm facilitating the meeting, I'm taking the notes on the screen for people. You're thumbs upping me by accident, going back to our conversation earlier. You accidentally triggered the gesture there. So I am really struggling with what notes app do I want to use. Drafts is coming in really handy for me right now, just a quick text entry when I'm doing a meeting, and then I'm not really sure where I'm putting that later. And we can talk about reminders as well. I'm looking back at Things, which has traditionally been my favorite app, task manager, looking at reminders. But I'm also just like, how do I still get to use my fun pens throughout the day? Because A, I have this big collection. Like, it seems it's going to be terrible to just pivot and never use them again. But B, it's not just the pride issue of it. It's that I love them. So, like, I'm really struggling right now with what is this system going to end up looking like for me? And it's okay that I don't have anything at all nailed down 2.5 weeks into a job, but that's where I'm at. So I've been talking to you about Obsidian. I'm considering Apple Notes. I've got a lot of things that I'm trying out, but right now Drafts is just kind of keeping my head above the water.
What's that word for like that unknowable, unattainable, like perfection? I feel like the word unicorn is in the word that I'm looking for, or the saying. It's like you're always chasing that thing. And for us, we've talked about almost every time you're on, we talk about our struggle with note apps and task apps because they are so specific to how people's brains work, but yet they're also like pretty opinionated kinds of apps. To me right now in my productivity software life, there's kind of a couple of different paradigms that make me attracted or unattracted to software. One of them is how powerful is this app? How many things can it lift? The other is how native is that app? So how much does it behave like it belongs on the operating system that I'm using? And that can be like design features usually, but also, it's the how it works, not just the how it looks. And then there's like the elegance of it, which I know kind of sounds like it's user interface design, but like, for example, OmniFocus, which is my current task app of choice, is very Mac native. Like it uses the same user interface elements. They always are taking advantage of Apple technologies. Like they always have their stuff, using the latest and greatest of the things that Apple has to offer. But I do not consider it to be like the easiest app to look at and like get straight to the information that, there's a lot of elements on it that add complexity, and it's really customizable. So you can customize those things, but it's never going to be as simple as the Reminders app. So I think where I've landed at is right now in my computing life, for the time being, I have built up so many years of systems on complex power tools that I'm just, until there's the next major shift in how people think about notes or task apps, I'm just going to kind of continue to ride on my systems. Like, for example, I'd say like the biggest downside of OmniFocus and also Obsidian, which is my main note-taking app. Actually, I'm using like 5 note-taking apps, but Obsidian is where most of my thoughts go. And these 2 apps are actually like pretty usable, except for it's like mobile is where they tend to fall down for me, because they tend to like feel clunky, and like the syncing is a little slower and more noticeable, and like the dragging and then dropping and the touch gestures are just not as smooth. Like it's a difficult thing for me, and I can't say that I'm always going to be here, but I've reached a relative peace, not with like these apps as much as just like I have created systems based on them, and I am like moving through life very smoothly by not upending those systems every 6 months.
Yeah, I think that's wise. It's honestly why I loved working with pen and paper so much, is just like, I can't mess with this too much. Or if I can, it's still within the confines of, maybe I'll lay out this page, and I do not do fancy like #Bujo layouts, but I do like to experiment with, can I get the best information on the page in this way, or am I laying out tasks this way? But in general, it's still within the confines of, this is a piece of paper and a pen. And so I fully support that, and I'm struggling with trying to get some of these systems in place so that I can just kind of leave it alone.
Yep. That's where I'm at. Getting the systems there. And, my love of the pens as well is why it's like I'm contextualizing them. So like having my notebook that's just for reflecting on my systems, and my yearly theme, it's kind of a nice thing. All right, I feel like we saved the best for last. My 2 favorites.
Yes, yeah. I'm so excited. Get ready. I'm buckling down.
One of my, so we're going to talk about widgets, but we're going to, hold on. Let's do my favorite 2 iPhone features. Can we just talk about Stage Manager super fast, since this is the one unique iPad thing, I feel like?
Yes.
Okay. Do you use this feature on your iPad?
So, since I was last on this show, I sold my iPad Pro. So I used to be the iPad guy, and I now have a MacBook Air as my, and I have an iPad Mini that I still love having an iPad. I use my iPad Mini constantly, but I do not have an iPad that can run Stage Manager. Now, if you want to come at me when we move into the Mac, I have started using Stage Manager on the Mac, and I actually love it so much. Okay. So we can get into that, but for the context of this, I do not have an iPad that can do Stage Manager.
All right. In short, this came out a year ago. Yes. This ability to be able to use windowed iPad apps, so to have overlapping windows, kind of like a Mac. Only 4 apps at once, but you can organize them into little stages. So like these 4 apps exist together, and then you can like switch to another stage, and then you're looking at these 4 apps. And the windows were like, they could be resized, they could be dragged around. The really, really major issue that lots of people had with this feature, thank you, Hart, is that they snapped into a grid, so you couldn't really position them exactly where you wanted them to be. And the updates to Stage Manager this year still snap to a grid, but the grid is like way more refined, so it feels more like you're making the windows exactly the size you want and putting them where you want. So it has I think Apple needs to go farther with this. I'm of course like everybody hates when I say this, but like I'm on team put macOS on iPad, but they're not going to do that clearly. So this update makes Stage Manager actually a thing that I want to use. I'll just put it that way. Like it's good enough to be what it is. It's not going to make me stop using the Mac, but I do use Stage Manager a whole lot more since they fixed this issue. The other thing that I really like is if you hold the Shift key and open an app, it will open that app inside of your current stage. So you like used to have to like just be constantly like dragging and dropping and touching like app icons and to like bring apps into your workspace, but now you can do more of it from the keyboard, which is where I want to be.
The fact that that is not the way it works on the Mac is infuriating. This is how I want it to function. There are still weird differences between how Stage Manager works on iOS and macOS. And I was like, I don't think that works on the Mac. And I just tried it. It doesn't. I just clicked on something in my dock and Shift clicked on it. It opened up a new stage. I'm running Stage Manager right now. So that's a big improvement that I cannot believe is not part of the Mac.
Okay, we'll get to the Mac feature that I don't even think I've ever opened that on the Mac. So we'll get to that in a second because maybe I need to be open to that. Okay, now the two things that are my favorite things about iOS 17. The first is Standby, and this is a feature where if you dock your phone, actually it really just needs to be on a charger. It works best if it's on a MagSafe dock where it's like sort of upright, but it can just be plugged in and on its side in landscape. And it will now present to you a beautiful new interface, which is like an at-a-glance, like, how do you describe this? Like it's kind of like if you have like a Google Home or like one of those products, like just a sort of like ambient display of information that's useful to you. It can show you widgets from your apps. It can show you like a rotation of photos, so it can be like a little mini picture frame sitting on your desk. It can show you the current music playing. It supports live activities, which came out last fall. So like if you've got like a timer running or like an Uber is coming to pick you up, it'll like give you live updating stats on that straight from that screen. And the widgets are really cool because if an app you use has support for widgets, they will be available as an option to have permanently fixed on your phone when it's on display.
Yeah, and you can swipe. It's kind of got three modes. There's the widget mode, there's photo mode, which is really cool. It can be displaying pictures, and then there's clock. So I spent too much money at some point and bought one of those Anchor cubes, and it's amazing. I want to get another one, but they're just kind of expensive. I got it on sale and I had an Amazon gift card at the time. So it was like $75 for me, but I think they're like $150. Maybe $130. Either way, it's not cheap, but they're amazing. And it's a cube and it can flip up the top, and that's where your phone can be mounted via MagSafe. It's got a little thing that pops out on the side that is an Apple Watch charger. And then underneath where the phone flips up, that is also a Qi charger that you can set AirPods on. So it's this compact little cube that can charge everything that you need. And I just keep it on my nightstand. And when I sit down in bed, watch TV, charge my watch, hang out with my wife, I'll put my phone on it and I will put it in widget mode and have a battery widget and a home widget. And because now, when we're going to talk more about it in a minute, but widgets are interactive, that home widget is, I can tap the button and it will change the lighting in our room, things like that. So, and then when it's time to actually go to sleep, I move it over to clock mode and it like pays attention to my sleep focus mode and stops lighting up. And even if it does light up, it senses me moving in the middle of the night. It becomes almost like a cool little old school alarm clock, and you can see what time it is. It senses your movement and lights up, but lights up red, so it's not quite as blinding and you know what time it is. This is so great. I want to have one on my desk as well and maybe have timery going or something like that, but this little Anchor cube is fantastic, and I'm trying to get your audience to spend more money because that's apparently what I do when I come on the show. So this is where it needs to be this time.
Well, I'm already saving up for ideas for the next holiday gift guide episode because I've been buying those Studio Neat ducks. And I have a couple of them now. So this is my problem, is because I was trying to solve the same problem. I liked this feature so much when I started using it back in July that I thought to myself, well, I got to have this everywhere. This is like a part of my work now, to have my phone giving me ambient information. So I love it. And I've had a little bit I've owned a couple of these like 3-in-1 like AirPods phone watch things that have been varying degrees of successful. So the cool thing about the Studio Neat dock is that it looks really classy, but it uses, you like slide the Apple proprietary chargers up into it. So it's all like Apple's standard charging as the actual charging. So it's like, about as fast as I think I can be. And that way I didn't have to like research the specs and make sure it supported fast charging or figure out what wattage charge it needed to be in order to charge as fast as possible. It's just all the Apple stuff. So I'm really happy with it. I keep on mine the OmniFocus today. All right, well, I guess it's called the forecast widget, stuff that's due today on one side, and then my calendar upcoming events on the other. That's what I do from most of the places where I use it. But you can customize the widgets. That's the next thing on the list. So I might as well just say that widgets have sort of invaded every area of Apple products this year. First of all, they are interactive. So where previously, if you wanted to look at a widget on your home screen, say like a list of calendar events or a list of tasks, and you would tap on one, the app would have to open from that point for you to actually do anything. But now an app, like for example, a task app, could have like a widget on your home screen with checkable little boxes, and you can actually tap the little checkable circle inside that widget, and it'll just check it off right then and there, and then show you a new task in its place. So like almost like little mini apps on your home screen. But the widgets are interactive in all of Apple's varieties of widgets. So lock screen widgets, which came out last fall, I have an OmniFocus lock screen widget so that I can always on my phone screen see the next due task. And I can now tap. It's a really tiny little circle touch target, but if I tap and it correctly hit that little circle, it checks it off, and the next task shows up right on my lock screen. The live, so like basically someone like, let's just use the Omni group as an example. So if they make a checkable task widget, that can now be an interactive widget on my home screen, on my lock screen, but that same widget style is available to me as a live activity. I'm sorry, not a live activity, in standby mode, so I can see it when my phone is docked in landscape. But also now, you can use these widgets on the Mac desktop and on the Apple Watch. They function differently on Apple Watch, but that same kind of core technology, if a developer chooses to use it, is now like going to benefit you on all of these platforms.
Yeah, and I don't know if we want to talk about it, but I just yesterday, Sonoma officially released yesterday, and I've been running the beta on my personal device since it came out, but I just put it on my work laptop yesterday, which may have been a bad idea. I got it approved by IT, but our VPN is not working on it, and I can't access our VPN. Don't tell my company. But IT at my company said it was fine, so it's their fault. Anyway, but I have, since I'm trying out things in different notes apps, I have just put the things widget on my Mac desktop and am checking stuff off right from there, and have it floating behind my Windows and Stage Manager, and just quickly go and click on a task and mark it done, and my tasks are always floating there. I'm trying to use Timery more with my new job, but I haven't done a good job of it. I'm going to put a Timery widget on my desktop, and you can trigger and start and stop timers straight from those. It's great. So I think this is a huge win that this was widget year, I guess 2.0, because we did have big widget year back with iOS 14, I think.
I think that's right, yeah. And actually, I forgot one. The iPad lock screen now supports widgets as well. So when your iPad is, turned off or just in sleep mode, and you look at the lock screen, you can have a bunch of stuff right there. I actually hope that the phone, it becomes more like the iPad, where you can stack a whole bunch of different ones. Like right now, you get very limited amount of space for how many widgets you can put there, but I would love to be able to fit more. Can we for a second here talk about which widgets we are using in these various places? Because I've got a couple that I want to shout out as useful.
Yes, I'll be honest, I have just, with the busyness, so I've been running the beta, but have not had many beta applications to try widgets with. I've had a few, but not a ton. And so then with starting a new job when all this released in the apps, I have not spent a ton of time Recustomizing home screens. I've got a few I want to try, but just haven't done. So I've kind of mentioned what I'm using so far, but I would love to hear. Maybe tell me what I need to be using. Let's try it that way.
Well, I'll tell you a couple. So a couple of the ones that are really interesting to me are ones that do make advantage of this new like interactivity. So two kinds of categories of apps. You mentioned one where I feel like they have huge potential, but where they require a lot of user input are like time tracking and like calorie counting for people who are into those things. And there are always these kinds of categories of apps where you have to be so diligent about like giving the app information. So the only apps that are successful in keeping me accountable for this are the ones that make it as few taps as possible to tell the app what I'm currently doing, what timer should be running, or what am I eating right now. And there's actually two really great apps. You mentioned one, it's Timery. And that app just keeps getting insane fast development. I'm happy to pay that guy. Joe is his name.
Like, Timery Joe.
Timery Joe. I follow him on Mastodon. I love watching him because he's just always like pushing things to the extreme. Like, let me give you some, like, this is, okay, we'll get nerdy. So, like, there's this feature that's a year old now on the iPhone called Live Activities, where like certain apps can just publish running up-to-date information to the lock screen. So instead of getting like a million DoorDash texts, you can just have like a little area of your lock screen will tell you like where your DoorDash is, you know, at which stage in development it is. So what Timery does is it shows you your currently running timer as a live activity, but live activities require the app to be launched in order to be up to date or show you any information. So I was finding that my timer, if I hadn't opened the app for the day, the timer would not be showing up on my lock screen, which it's kind of useless to me because one of the ways I remember to track my time is by knowing if the wrong timer is still running from a previous thing I was doing. So he figured out that you can actually, like through push notifications, force a live activity to start. So he added this feature where the app basically, like through notifications, can launch a live activity all by itself, just by you simply like starting one from the widget. So that's really cool. Now, of course, his new widgets are interactive. So rather than launching the full Timery app and then having to like putz around in it, he just can like give you a widget that's a grid of available timers, and then you just tap once on the one you want to start running, and then that's it. Just one single tap. He has added pagination to the widget. So if you have a lot of different timers, without launching the app, you can just page through all of your timers straight from within the widget. It's nuts. I wish more people would push these boundaries. Like another great one is I really like the Carrot Weather live activity because it shows a rain graph for the next hour.
I use that one constantly.
I keep trying to, I need to like email that guy. Brian is his name. What do we call Brian?
I more refer to him as
Brian?
I more refer to him as the Carrot Weather because that's the scary AI that's going to destroy us all while predicting our weather. So I forget about the person rather than the AI.
I gotta email the robot and ask it. I think that they should implement that because it's like, okay, the rain graph is really helpful, but the rain graph is only really helpful if I've launched the app, but I've never launched the app. It's not like I know it's going to rain, and so I launched the app in advance of the rain. Like, I think it would be very feasible for that app to somehow, through notifications, just push the rain graph to my lock screen. So these, I mean, Timery is a great example of this. Another one for calorie counting is Food Noms. And Food Noms is an awesome app with lots of really, really great features that eliminate the friction of calorie counting. And they have this awesome widget. I have like the medium size widget on my second page of my home screen, which is like health tracking stuff. So on that second page of my home screen, I've got like a widget that shows me like my activity rings and how many hours I slept, how many minutes I've meditated. And then I've got one that tells me like what does it tell me? My streaks, like my habits. That's from the Streaks app. So like which of my 6 daily habits I'm trying to build I have done for the day. And then at the bottom of this page is this widget, and you can customize like about 8 or 9 or 10 little circles and like with a little graphic in them that will just one tap log a food entry without even opening Food Noms. So like, I mean, I'm a creature of habit. I've got a lot of things I eat regularly, and just having those 8 or so things one tap away makes me so much more willing to track my food when I don't even have to launch the app to do it. And it's awesome. I love that app. I love that live widget, that interactive widget. Other good ones, of course, like I on my main screen of my home screen, I have the calendar widget, and then I have the OmniFocus widget for to-dos. I use the Apple Home widget, which is I keep that in the today view, which is the one like if you swipe to the right of your main home screen. That's really good for like unlocking doors of my house really quick. And then I really like there's a cool one called TV remote, which will hook up to your TV, and you can customize like which features of your TV show up in the widget. So I've got like change HDMI input, and then like volume up and down are like just fixed to my phones. Like I don't have to go into the app. I just pick up my phone, swipe to the right ones, and then I can change the volume. Really useful for when I'm playing Elden Ring late at night and I'm fighting a monster, and then I get a text from upstairs like, turn it down.
I love it. Yeah, I need to. Sometime I want to talk about food noms because I have experienced so much friction with calorie tracking. So maybe we should talk about that at some point.
I'm becoming a food tracking power user.
I love it.
Oh gosh, I cannot believe I'm ignoring an actually useful one for a music teacher. Hold on. So I'll just tell you, since we're transitioning to the new Mac update, I'll tell you that now you can put these widgets on your desktop, which is an awesome place for them to go. And I have just filled my desktop I even organized my desktop files and folders just so I could fit more widgets onto my desktop. And I've got calendar, OmniFocus, Carrot Weather, Timery. Now you can put your phone apps widgets on there too. So I've got my water tracking one. I've got food noms tracking widget. I've got a widget that shows me my locks to my house so I can like open and close the locks to my house. I got a little shortcuts widget that will run some different shortcuts that I use on my Mac a fair amount. But check this out. On all Apple platforms, the one, the only, the Fourscore app, the famous iPad sheet music reading app, has a very cool widget that just shows you a grid of every pitch, and you tap the pitch, and then your device is a temporary pitch pipe, and it'll just play a brief, couple seconds long drone. And that is so useful for figuring out the key of something you're hearing, or if I'm trying to tune the band and I need to get a B flat or an E flat in my head really quick, I just swipe once to the right on my phone and then tap the pitch I want to hear. So incredibly useful.
How much is Fourscore? Because I would literally buy it or I need that widget. I'm not I'm not a band director. I'm not a music teacher, but the amount of times where I'm trying to figure out what key something is, because I'm a guitar player, a lot of times I can hear what shapes on a guitar someone's using, but I don't know if they're up and down the neck with a capo, something like that. Determining the exact key is difficult, but once I know a key, I can play along really easily. So I would just, when something comes on the radio or something, I would pay for just that widget.
I feel like Fourscore is a $14-ish these days, but you get it on every Apple device.
That's not bad. I might do that.
Yeah, it's a really useful widget. Well, I certainly am enjoying these widgets on the Mac. I'm using them a lot more than I thought. There's a couple of other things. The Mac, I feel like, is a pretty light series of updates this year. I really do like the screensavers. They're like the same as those Apple TV ones where it's like a flyover view, so it'll be kind of like a moving image, but then when you unlock your device, the image sort of like settles and then stays where it is as all of your like widgets and files and folders and stuff kind of swoop in. It's really classy.
I like it. I think it's super classy. I just do not like having a landscape as my wallpaper. I tried it on all summer on my computer, and I finally just was like, nope, I'm just going to switch to a swirly background, and I'll still use a nice screensaver, but like having it settle in and be my wallpaper, I can't do it. I don't like having a landscape wallpaper.
That's so interesting. I do like it. I'm going to keep it for now. I actually haven't explored how many there are. I just have the default one set up. All right. Well, we've also got some Safari features. I'm kind of like bouncing between Safari and Chrome most of my life. I've been pretty much into Chrome. This comes back to the settling on a workflow and sticking to it conversation of the Notes and Tasks apps. I've just kind of settled that Chrome, at least on my Mac, is the thing I need to use to get all the education apps to work correctly. But there's this one thing that every time I want to switch back to Safari gets me, and it's that Safari, and this new Mac update included, keeps adding these cool features where you can like save groups of tabs together and automatically have your browser switch between which tabs you're looking at based on your focus mode. But there's these weird quirks that Safari has. Like, for example, if I'm in a tab group and I click a link in another app, chances are I probably want that link to open inside of my current tab group, but instead it opens it inside of a generic tab group, which is local to the device only and does not sync across my iOS and my other devices. So that's really frustrating. But they introduced this cool new thing where not only now can a focus mode link to a specific collection of tabs, but it can also create a whole profile for Safari. So you can have different hot links in your favorites bar at the top. You can be logged into a different Google account, which is super useful for me as someone who has a personal and a work Google Drive account. And I'm using it, but then today even I'm trying to play some ukulele play-alongs for my general music class, and I'm in my like work profile browser, and I've got like a single tab of that browser like dragged onto the secondary display where they see the projector. And every time, for some reason, that I try to do something in my other window, I guess because they're both open to the same tab group at the same time, for whatever reason, every time I try to do something in the other Safari window, the like weird stuff happens inside of the YouTube video stops playing and like just turns into frosted glass and says, click here to resume video or something. I don't know. There's just like so many weird quirks. Chrome has such a good implementation of tab groups. My only complaint is that they don't sync to the iOS version of Chrome, but it's just so much more no nonsense. Also, they go horizontally instead of vertically, which to me makes more sense because I like to have the more horizontal real estate when I'm in a web browser.
Yeah, I have not messed with this too much. Mostly, I, again, work in an ed tech company. We have a Chrome extension. So I am constantly beta testing the next version of our Chrome extension and just always have it running. So I pretty much always use Chrome for work and Safari for personal. But I am tempted to like start doing more work in Safari, especially for the other feature that we're going to talk about with Safari. I want to start playing with it more and potentially using Chrome just at times when I'm actively like trying to do something with that extension. So I'm very excited about this. Your audience is probably like, why did Robbie invite this guy? He hasn't tried any of the new OS stuff. It's been a strange few weeks with starting a new job, but I am very excited about some of this.
I'm excited about you trying it as well and getting your more mature thoughts at a later time, because I'm like hot taken for macOS Sonoma right now. I really have been using this for a day.
Yeah,
and we'll see. I don't know if the tab in the Safari thing is going to stick. I want it to, but I don't know. It's too quirky and weird. So I don't know. I'll report back later. But hey, there is one other interesting thing, and we're about to make several decisions on air that could break this call. But I'm wondering, like, we're on a FaceTime call for a reason. There are some new Mac screen sharing features that integrate into FaceTime. Are we going to try this live on the air and see how they work?
Do we want to talk about the other Safari thing before we do that? The Safari apps?
Oh my gosh, yes. So this is actually extremely useful.
This is the thing that I am dying to try because I live in web apps. My company uses Confluence for internal wikis. The development team's using Jira. We've got all these different online tools. And this functionality allows you to, like, when you're in one of those web apps, you click a button and Safari, it makes its own quote unquote app. And it adds it to your application folder. You can add it to your dock. And anytime you need to use that specific web app, it kind of has its own app-like instance. And going back to, Robbie, what you were saying before about how native does this tool feel, everything is web apps these days. It's hard to find tools, that a company, especially, I work for a pretty big company and most of us use Macs, but we've got a lot of Windows users. So everything is a web app, but having the ability to kind of pin it to the dock and say, all right, when I'm using this app, it's here. And it's not just opening up a new tab and cluttering up the rest of my Safari, any of that stuff. I'm very, very excited about this.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. So I've already taken several web apps that I use for education, our student management system. I actually have not made a web app for Canvas yet, I have a pretty established browser-based workflow for that, but I think there's some potential there. A lot of things I use to publish this show and my blog have really annoying websites to get in and out of it, and they're all in a tab group, and I actually just turned all of them into web apps and now deleted that tab group. So I've got like a Squarespace app on my dock right now, which has made it so much easier to edit my blog. I've got one for Libsyn, which is for podcast analytics. I'm just going to town on the web apps. And I think even if I do switch back to Chrome, I will continue to use Safari for this feature because it's really been nice. I played with it quite a bit last night.
All right, so do we want to try and break our computers now?
I think so. Do you want to try to share a keynote with me or something? Does that work?
Ooh, let's see. Do I have a keynote to share?
I might have one. I mean, I can just share my... Oh, here we go. Collaborate. Oh, so I just opened a keynote that I definitely am not going to share with you, but it offered me to collaborate with you on it because it knows that I am on a FaceTime call. So let's try this. I'm going to share my back to school night presentation with you. Okay, but wait, it didn't offer me that. How do I get that message to show back up? Okay, a little menu pops up. It knows we're on the call. This is interesting. So I can screen share with you. I can actually choose my mic and my video input output, which is long overdue. Oh my. Okay, so there's kind of this thing in the toolbar, or I'm sorry, the menu bar, which is, I've noticed has over the past day been tracking which apps need my microphone on my screen.
Yes.
So if you click that thing, that's where the options show up. So I'm going to click now on the keynote window, and I have no idea what you see. I think it's safe to say that this feature is rich enough that it probably merits us playing with a little bit before we talk intelligently about it. But basically, you can now share a keynote or a presentation or your screen or a window of your app, a kind of like a Zoom call or a Google Meet, but you can do it in FaceTime. And it seems to be like there's a lot of ways that Apple has made this experience really nice and elegant. Like my little head can kind of float in the lower corner. If you're taking advantage of the iPhone, you can do what I'm doing now, where my phone's really nice camera is my webcam, although my connection is bad, so I probably look terrible. There's a lot here.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, speaking of FaceTime, if you're an Apple TV user and an Apple TV lover like myself, you can now use your iPhone's camera to use FaceTime on your TV. And I've used this a couple times. It is super nice. I am very impressed. I just kind of, for my new phone, I got a little anchor ring that helps me to hold it better. I kind of slip my finger through a ring. But then it also acts as a prop, like a little stand. So I can just kind of rest the phone right next to my TV. And then it uses that new center stage feature. So like it follows me and anyone else in the room around and like recalibrates its zoom to like fit everyone into the frame and follow them around if they walk around the room. So it's like to the person on the receiving end, they're like seeing my whole house pretty much. And then like it like perfectly zooms into me sitting on the couch right at the beginning of the call. It's just like so tastefully done. And honestly, like FaceTime is completely and totally a thing that I want to do with the family in the living room on a big screen and not just like with an iPad mini kind of dragging it around the house.
So my wife and I, every Thursday night, we help. There's a nonprofit that we help lead. And after all the leaders, our kids go to bed, we kind of have a weekly FaceTime call just to catch up on things. So I'm going to try this out for the first time tomorrow. So if I were to want to do that, how do I make this happen? Do I start the call on the Apple TV, or how does this all work?
If I recall, I opened the FaceTime app on the Apple TV, and then it offered me some options for like what my camera source was, and I just selected my iPhone, which it recognized was in the room. And then there were some of the usual options you have when you use continuity camera. So like, do you want fancy lighting? Do you want it to blur the background? And then I just basically put the phone right on the TV stand, and then it was ready to go. It actually did a cool thing when I first called someone on the receiving end of the call, like on their end. It like when they picked up, it like showed them like my whole house, like zoomed out really far, and then it like almost as if I was like in the opening scene of a sitcom, it like zoomed in to me sitting on the couch.
Okay, so does the phone have to be in portrait, landscape? Can it be in either? Does it matter?
That's a great question. So one of the things that bugs me about continuity camera is actually I really do wish that if you wanted to, you could use the selfie camera if that was the more convenient camera.
That's right. It is only the main camera. I've done that before, but it's been a while.
Yeah, so I mean that means that you get all those nice features like portrait mode and all the cool lighting and the cinematic thing where it like follows you around the room. But yeah, you have to use the back camera of the phone. I really honestly don't remember having to tweak it too much. It worked fairly out of the box with minimal setup.
Okay. I'm very excited to try this tomorrow night.
It's nice. I just wish more people would answer my calls when I do it. But yeah, it's been pretty good so far.
Well, then you can just leave them a voicemail.
There you go. There you go. Hey, there are segments on this show.
We have them.
We have them. Are we good on the main topic? I think we covered it nicely.
Yeah, I think so.
And in fact, my tech tip, music of the week, and app pick, with the exception of my music pick, are gonna just be callbacks to things I already mentioned on the air. So I might as well just knock them out if that's cool.
Let's go.
Okay, my tech tip of the week is the action button. If you have a new phone or a new watch, you don't have to be a fancy pants with what it does. You don't have to put a shortcut there, but just use it for something. Make it go to the flashlight. It could be really helpful for you.
My tech tip will be a callback to the Class Nerd. I believe we had a full episode about it. I could be wrong. It's been a while, but I am continuing to realize that one of the best things I have ever done technology-wise is learn Markdown. I may have even used this as a tech tip on Music Ed Tech Talk as well. It's that big a deal. So this is just a callback. But Markdown, for anybody who doesn't know, is just a quick way of writing in plain text, but instead of having to like click to select bold or insert a link or create bulleted lists or even use keyboard commands, it's just a quick way of, you can put two asterisks. This is great podcasting as well. Theme of the night. That's what the episode title should be. Great podcasting. Put two asterisks around a word to make it bold, or one on each side to make it italics, and it continues to make my life. More and more applications read and convert and can use Markdown, and just having that skill of knowing it, and it's very simple. You could probably learn it in 15 minutes, and I'm sure Robbie will put some resources in the show notes for it. But it just makes getting information down. Again, I've been talking about how quickly I'm having to take notes and stuff. Having it be in Markdown is huge. So learning Markdown, tech tip from Craig.
I love Markdown so much. It's so useful. And I have a fairly popular blog post about using Markdown using Markdown in Canvas, actually, which is my district's learning management software. If you learn it, you can get a lot of the fancy formatting of your learning management, which is often very cumbersome to use. But if you're trying to make your student-facing page look really nice and you learn some basic Markdown, you can get all the benefits of that beautiful formatting, but all you're doing is just typing plain text. Okay, we'll do music last. My app of the week, I think I just it wouldn't make sense to highlight widgets and talk about them at length and not highlight a great widget. So I'm just going to give Food Noms my app of the week. Tracking health has been awesome for me and has made my physical and mental health and my ability to function professionally so much better this year. And part of that story is getting a little bit more serious about fitness and nutrition and what I'm eating, and being able to do that in an easy way is awesome.
I debated whether or not to make this my app of the week, but it's because I'm talking to you and you informed me this app exists that I'm going to go with it. And my app of the week is Pokemon Smile.
Oh, yes.
So I received, it's been 6 weeks or so now. It's been a while. I received a text from Robbie with an adorable picture of his son brushing his teeth with Pokemon all around him. And I was like, what in the world is this? Because our kids, or my youngest and Robbie's son, are only a few months apart in age and both into Pokemon. And I was like, what is this? My youngest will eat this up. And he told me about Pokemon Smile. And the kid has to brush their teeth, and you hold the camera up and it uses AR, and the child brushes their teeth, and it'll say brush harder or faster, I guess is probably the better. It says brush faster, and it'll tell you different parts of your mouth to brush in, which my 4-year-old is not great at following, but he's still brushing his teeth for 2 minutes. And the whole while you have a Pokemon that is on your team battling another one, and then you get to catch that Pokemon at the end. And my 4-year-old now brushes his teeth for 2 minutes every night consistently, 2 whole minutes. I'm not even that good at it. I kind of want to start using it myself, but I don't want to mess up his game on my phone. So this has nothing to do with productivity, with music education, but it has been such a game changer at our house to have Pokemon Smile, and Robbie told me about it, so it's my app of the week.
Great pick. Yeah, it strikes me as awesome that there's so many mobile Pokemon apps that are designed to help you focus on something that's healthy. Like, have you played the new Pokemon Sleep?
I haven't. I've been meaning to try it, but what's it do? I don't even know.
I mean, basically, it's funny. There's a YouTube video that they released a week or two before it came out, and it's like an explainer of how to play the game. And the top comment was like, so you sleep. That's how you play the game. It's pretty fun. Theo really likes it. I play Pokemon Go a bit, and I've got that, Pokeball thing that like catches them without you having to open up the app. You just kind of carry around this ball, and you take that same ball and take it to sleep with you. And then when you wake up in the morning, it's not a very accurate sleep tracker, but it does track the minutes you're in bed from the time you start it to the time you end it. And then you get little Pokemon that show up in a little field. And with those Pokemon, they catch berries in a field, and you feed a Snorlax. And you also have to log in 3 times a day and feed him meals. And it's honestly just like pretty cute and lighthearted fun. And Theo likes to feed Snorlax with me, so he's always reminded me to like take out my phone at times of the day. And yeah, it's delightful. Yeah, and then this Pokemon Smile, what a find. Like every time I'm responsible for that part of bedtime, it's like that's my ticket to getting Theo to go upstairs. It's like, all right, we're going to do this other thing, but then we're going to go catch a Pokemon together. And he gets pumped.
Exactly.
About it.
Every time. Tonight, my son caught a Gloom. For anybody who's wondering, any Pokemon fans out there, Gloom was the catch of the night.
Nice. My wife did teeth tonight.
Got it.
She does not have the Pokemon app, but we use that to our advantage, like the differences of how we do things. Like, oh, that's a mama thing or a dada thing. That's how we sometimes leverage, whoever needs to be doing bedtime as the rightful doer of bedtime for that evening.
I do like that strategy. We have that with other things, but Pokemon Smile is if Sam is getting ready for bed, if Laura is getting Sam ready for bed, then Sam will inevitably appear at some point while I'm getting our older 2 ready, and he'll say, "Daddy, can I have your phone?" So, and I'm like, "Yes, here you go."
Awesome. Well, my music pick of the week is an album called Deep, The Baritone Sessions, and it is by guitarist Mark Lettieri, who...
Love some Mark Lettieri.
Yeah, he plays with Snarky Puppy, which is how listeners might recognize him if you're into them at all. And a couple songs from this record just kept popping up on my I have this algorithmic Apple Music playlist that I play on the speakers around the house that's just generated based on stuff I listen to a lot. And these songs from this album kept coming up, and I was like, every time one would come on, I'd be like, who is this? And finally, I recognized that there was a big fish on the cover of the album, and it's just a whole record of him playing baritone guitar, and he's got a killer band. Every song is named after a fish that lives fairly deep in the ocean, and it's just it scratches all the itches. I don't know what else to say. It's his tone is so delicious, and everything grooves hard. Great textures, great blend between all the different guitars on the record. I actually haven't even taken the time to look if he is playing all of the guitars on the record or if there are other people collaborating, but the band sounds great. I recommend everybody check it out.
I'm literally pulling up and saving it to my Apple Music right now.
Sweet.
So I should always go back and see what my app and music pick of the week is the previous times I've been on the show, but I never do it. So I could literally be recommending the same band every time I do this and not know it. I think this is new for me, but I'm not sure. So I have a band that I'm obsessed with called the Arcadian Wild. They're out of Nashville. They actually met at the school where I got my Master's of Education, but they did the music program there. And they're bluegrass and just amazing, interesting harmonies, and not just vocal harmony, but harmonization as well. Interesting chord structures and progressions that aren't just your standard run-of-the-mill 1-5-4-6 minor bluegrassy kind of thing. Just incredibly talented musicians. So they had an album come out sometime this summer, and that album is, I'm stalling because I had it pulled up and then I went and added Mark Lettieri and I've lost it. The album is called Welcome, and it came out this summer, and it is fantastic. I listen to it constantly. If you're looking for one song, track number 2 from the album is called Dopamine, and it's as I guess appropriate as we're talking about our phones so much on this, but it is kind of commentary on the dopamine hit that we get from our phones. But each vocalist is singing a completely different melody and lyric at the same time to kind of simulate the information flow that we're receiving. And it sounds kind of corny and cheesy, but they do it so well. And it's so musical and so interesting. Gosh, I love it so much.
Well, Craig, I love talking about this kind of stuff with you because we go back on this topic, but I know you're going to get pumped about the little things. And I feel like these updates in the software this year are little things. And sometimes you get like a big thing, admittedly, like the whole widget overhaul is actually quite a big thing if you think about how many areas of our computing lives it's going to extend into. But all these little quality of life things really get me excited because it's the little details that make computers do more lifting for me in my life. And so I appreciate you coming on and getting into those weeds with me.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure. It's great to catch up on these things since we used to talk, on air weekly, and now we do it much less often, but it's always fun, and it's great to dive back into this. I agree. So thank you again to you and to your audience for having me today.
I'm Robbie Burns. Thanks for listening to Music Ed Tech Talk. You can find the show's page, show notes for this episode, and my blog at musicedtechtalk.com. You can subscribe to blog posts through an RSS app of your choice, and you can subscribe to the podcast in a podcast app of your choice. You can now get blog posts delivered right into your email inbox once a week. Please rate and review this show in the podcast app. It absolutely helps. Word of mouth is helpful too, so please spread the word about it. You can learn more about my music and teaching career at robbieburns.com. I'm all over the internet at Robbie Burns or _Robbie Burns on most social media sites. On Mastodon, I'm Robbie at social.musicedtechtalk.com. Consider supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/musicedtechtalk. All tiers get perks, but even the base tier gets you access to the Music Ed Tech Talk Discord community, where you can chat with other supporters and guests of the show about music, apps, pedagogy, lesson ideas, tech support, and more. It's a fun place to be, and I hope to connect with you there. Thanks to this episode's sponsor, Scale Exercise Play Along Tracks. Be sure to check it out. See you next time.